I would say, I've learned about my writing from directing plays and vice versa. And then teaching is so, so helpful to me in terms of my writing.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of The Artist Toolkit, the podcast for writers, actors and makers alike. My name is Nikki, I'm your host, and I'm so excited that this is the very first episode. I've wanted to have this podcast for quite a while now, and it's 2021, which, it's basically the year of the podcast. On this podcast, we're going to be discussing creativity and all the things that surround this wonderful world of making. And the whole point of the podcast really is to offer, through different episodes and through different interviews, a very eclectic approach to making, so that you can all just have new skills and new things and new knowledge really to add to your own toolkit. And I always think that discussing making makes the whole process feel a lot less lonely. At least that's how I see it anyway. So I think, it's just really nice to see yourself in other artists. And speaking of artists, I want to start us off with a bang. So today's episode is centered around the practice of the very special Poppy Corbett, Dr. Poppy Corbett. Let's put some respect on her name. And because Poppy is the most wonderfully humble person, I know that she would love me to keep this introduction very precise, very short. But, I'm just hoping I can be forgiven for gushing about her right now because, Poppy is amazing and it's too late, Poppy. You can't do anything about it now. I've just got lots of well-deserved admiration for you. So Poppy is a playwright who is currently on the Old Vic 12 scheme, as well as a teaching fellow in playwriting and screenwriting at Royal Holloway University. In 2015, her play It's My Party won the First Draft Lambeth Playwriting competition, and in 2013, her play Hatchling won Masterclass at Theatre Royal Haymarket's inaugural Pitch Your Play competition. She is also a theatre director and a wonderful teacher and tutor, winning the College Excellent Teaching Prize in 2014, which comes as no surprise for me because I was taught by Poppy during my undergraduate studies in creative writing at Royal Holloway, and she's an amazing teacher, very, very supportive, and I feel really blessed to still be friends with her today. I do think of Poppy as a big sister in the theatre world, actually, because not only did she herself study at Royal Holloway, but she then went on to do a master's in advanced theatre practice, which I myself also went on to do. So sometimes I worry a bit that I might look like I'm trying to copy her or something, I'm just sort of following in Poppy's footsteps, which, what better footsteps to follow in? If you've had a chance to see her work already, then you'll know how wonderful it is. And if you haven't yet, do not fear, because you will have a chance to at this year's York Theatre Royal's Festival of Ideas, where there's going to be an online play reading of her new show, The Shoe That Flew, followed by a post-show Q&A. So I'm going to link that event in the, what do you call them? The show notes? I'm going to call them the show notes down below. In the episode you're about to listen to, we got into all sorts of interesting discussions, learning all about how Poppy first got started in her very impressive and multidisciplinary career, and she had some excellent tips for budding writers. I'm going to link down below the resources that she recommended in the show notes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're a bit like me and you like to watch video interviews, my YouTube channel is An Artist Travels, all one word, lowercase, and I will link the resources in the description box on YouTube, including the London Writers Salon, which I've used several times since this interview. I've used it a lot to get my writing done. So thank you, Poppy, for that recommendation. That was a total gem. And without further ado, please help me welcome Poppy Corbett. How are you doing, Poppy?
I'm good, yeah. I in a pandemic and like all of us, so yeah, I'm really good actually. I'm lucky that I've had a really busy year, but obviously it's just a very strange, weird time that I'm trying to navigate in terms of life and also writing.
Sure. And I think that will be really interesting intersection to talk about later, like how's the pandemic affected your writing and stuff like that. I just want to say thank you so much, because this is episode 1 of an interview series that I'd love to do. Thank you. For those of you who don't know, Poppy actually taught me, which is really exciting, during my undergrad at Royal Holloway. So, I can personally attest to your awesome writing skills and teaching skills. We'll talk more about that. But first of all, I'd love to hear about you, how you got started in playwriting, and if you could share with me perhaps your earliest memory of writing.
Ooh, so I was quite lucky in that I grew up in a house with parents who kind of encouraged creativity. My dad's a poet, so I always kind of had that influence. And I guess my earliest memory of writing then was when I was quite tiny and kind of made like little books with my parents. So it's always kind of been something I've done. But then when I kind of became a teenager and got a bit older, you kind of push against your family a bit, I guess. Yeah. And I was like, no, I don't want to be a writer. Like maybe I'll be a lawyer or like a journalist, like not creative writing. And then I went to university and I did English and drama. And I think it was there that I really discovered what I really love, which is writing and also directing. And I did a module in playwriting taught by an amazing playwright and teacher, Mike Punter. And then I was like, oh, okay, I am a writer. And I think it was also like having that validation from someone who wasn't like a family member saying like your writing is good and kind of and that's when I really thought, okay, maybe I should pursue this.
That's really cool. And obviously you get to do that now for people. You get to be that person that helps validate people's writing, right?
So exciting. Do you know, one of the best things about this pandemic has been still being able to teach. I got a job in September. So I had like this whole year of teaching and just being able to like encourage young people to write and see them grow in confidence. Really exciting. And some of them go on to do amazing things like you. So nice to be talking to you because I'm so proud of students who go on and kind of find that that's what they really want to do. It's you know, it's very exciting for me. So yeah, that's kind of how I began. I don't think I really wrote. I think I wrote scraps of plays before university, like bits and bobs of things. But I think it was only when I was at university that I wrote like a complete piece.
Do you remember that first play?
I do remember it. I don't know. I have there are like different memories. I think it was called Spiders. I have like, I can't find it. I think it's on like an old, really like an old laptop that's in my attic. Remember there was a moment in it where a guy like cuts his housemate's hair off without her knowing. It was like a weird, there was a weird like hair cutting moment in it. And that's about all I remember of it. But
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. And I also remember that we had to write play in a group, which was really challenging. And we wrote this weird play about an old lady stealing post in her village. Like,
that actually sounds really interesting.
I bet. Well, it was a bit weird. So I can kind of remember bits of what those first pieces were, but I'd like to find them so I can actually read them, see what
oh, hopefully that would be really cool. You kind of answered my next question. Actually, I was going to ask you about if there was anything else that you wanted to be when you were younger, but you mentioned like a lawyer or
everything was on the table. I think I wanted to be a vet quite a lot because I love animals, so that was always like, want to be a vet so I can work with animals. I wanted to be a Blue Peter presenter, like really strongly, because you get to do like all this amazing stuff. And I thought, well, that's kind of like doing all of the jobs but in one job, because you get to go like skydiving and then you get to go pet animals and you get to I really wanted to be a Blue Peter presenter. And yeah, when I was sort of getting to the stage where I was like, okay, I need to work out what I want to do in my life, I was thinking maybe lawyer, maybe journalist, maybe something in the theatre. So theatre was kind of always on the table, but yeah.
And did you grow up going to the theatre as well?
Yeah, again, I feel very lucky. I was very privileged in that my parents took us to the theatre. We were like encouraged to go to the theatre, so I saw a lot of stuff growing up. Also, I was very lucky in that my parents sent us to a youth theatre group, which was at the Cheltenham Playhouse, and it was called Theatre Studio. And I had like the best time ever there. Like whenever school was bad or like stress, I knew that like on a Friday night and Saturday morning I'd be like at my theatre group. Lucky that they could afford that, and I just think youth and community theatre is like so important, and all children should do it, and it should be free. Theatre was like a big part of my life growing up, but I was still never like, I'm definitely going to be a playwright or definitely go into theatre or definitely be a writer. It was, you know, I knew it was something I loved and enjoyed, but you know, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. That's still not, Nikki. I might still become a Blue Peter presenter, and you know.
Listen, I'm here for that. That's so cool. Be like, Poppy. I did when I was younger, I was part of a choir, and we took part in there was a year that Blue Peter did the BBC proms, and we got to do that, and it was so cool. And they gave us all these Blue Peter badges.
Oh my god,
use it
that's
for the year.
amazing.
It was amazing.
So good.
But yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I think I'm a bit like that, where I'm like, oh, I want to do different things. And you do different things, because you're not only a playwright, but you direct and you teach. And yeah, what's the relationship between those three things like? Do you feel that they interplay?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's called a portfolio career, isn't it? That's the term now, where you do lots of different things. I definitely feel like they all connect. I would say like directing and writing, it's all kind of moving towards that moment in the theatre when the audience come into contact with the play. It's just, you know, different kind of angles. I love directing because it's when you're at the center of like lots of different creative conversations, so I find that really fun. But you can still do that to an extent being a writer. But I would say, you know, I've learned about my writing from directing plays and vice versa. And then teaching is so helpful to me in terms of my writing. When I'm forced to like explain concepts and explain like what I think is important in playwriting to students, like I have to really believe in what I'm saying. And I've been taught by a lot of great playwrights, and I've kind of learned so much from them, and it's great to kind of be able to pass that on. But it just really helps me like clarify stuff, and it helps when I'm teaching plays. It helps my students say amazing things about plays that I'm like, oh my god, I never thought of that before. And it's so exciting to kind of see the plays through their eyes. I find that amazing. Yeah, so I just find it's so helpful. Like, for example, a student the other day, we were talking about stuff, and they said, oh, no, we're writing a low stakes play. And I was like, but like plays have to have like high stakes, something has to be at stake. And then I kind of realized like, oh, maybe I'm not explaining what stakes means, like what high stakes means, and it doesn't necessarily mean like action packed, like people dying,
the bomb's gonna go off.
Like, okay, I kind of need to. And then I was like, look, your play has got high stakes, and it kind of explained why that was. And so it being forced to explain that stuff teaches me about writing. So I'm always my own student, basically. So I probably learn more than I'm giving out. But
when did you get started with your teaching?
So I got started in 2014. Yeah, and I came and taught at Royal Holloway as a visiting lecturer, playwriting, which was really great. But actually the first time I taught any kind of drama was again at my youth theatre. On my gap year, I went back and taught drama, taught like some of the Saturday drama groups. So I guess that was my first time that I taught any kind of drama. But the first time I taught playwriting was in 2014, and I was so nervous when I first started. I prepared like so much stuff and just kind of like but it was like great. It was like I loved it. I loved finding out that I loved it. It was really exciting, and I've kind of taught on and off ever since. And I'm always learning how to be a better writer and be a better teacher from teaching.
Yeah. So good. Thank you. So I know that you also like to work on devise processes, and I was wondering whether you might like to talk a little bit into that process. Because it's quite a non-traditional way of working. Perhaps people are more used to, the standard hierarchy, director, playwright, actors. What's it like for you being, in a devising room?
Sure, like I haven't actually devised anything for a while, but I guess, so I went on to do a master's at Central School of Speech and Drama, which you also did.
Yes.
Makes me really happy. Like, I love that. So it was advanced theatre practice, and it was a course kind of dedicated to like devising, collaboration, all that kind of stuff. So I guess I learned a lot on that course, and I kind of came out of that course and I started devising in kind of with various different people, various different sort of companies. And like basically with devising and with everything, I just feel like more brains is better than one brain. And I just find it so exciting to be in a room with people who have different skills to me. So when I've kind of led devising processes or been in devising rooms, like it's always really important to have like someone like a composer in the room, a movement director, just people who kind of bring different skills that like aren't necessarily my strengths. And I find that really exciting, like working with different kind of creative brains, like people who have kind of visual brains, or audio brains, physical brains. I just kind of, and it means the work is like richer and has more depth to it. When you're working on a traditional play, you can kind of bring those people into the room too. But I just love, I mean, devising is hard, but I've had some amazing moments, like seeing things happen in, like spontaneous things kind of happen in the room. I just find it really exciting, and I'd like to go back to doing more of that, but who knows when I'll be allowed in a room with loads of other people again.
Yeah, there's something different about devising, like as you said, if you have someone in the room from the start. So instead of being like, oh, we'll work with a sound designer maybe towards the end, maybe having them alongside you during the rehearsal process is really nice.
For sure. And that's been something exciting with the work I've done throughout this year on the Old Vic 12 scheme, is that we've had a sound designer and a movement director and a designer with us, like from very early days. And this is just sort of changed the way that I've thought about my writing and my play. It's exciting. More brains are better than like one brain, essentially. I don't know if that answered your question. I can't even remember what your question was, but it was about devising.
Yeah, about being in the devising room.
It's just, I feel really happy in a devising room. I think it's a really creative space, but it is a difficult environment to navigate, because it's not like you have a play and you're like, right, this is what we're going to do. It's like, okay, we're actually here to kind of make something, and we don't necessarily have a lot to go on, maybe just an idea. So that can be quite scary.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your work with Old Vic 12 and all the exciting stuff that you've done this year. So you've been working on a play called Fake Melania, is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. How's it going? What's the process been like? Obviously, we've been in lockdown, like what's that looks like?
So actually, lockdown has been valuable, weirdly, to the process. It meant that we've actually got to know each other better, even if it's over Zoom, and that we've had kind of longer to work on the pieces. So I think actually, like, next week was when my show was meant to be being performed. Sadly, it has been cancelled because of COVID, but there's we're doing a filmed reading of it, and then we're going to think about what we want to do next with it and where it might go. But actually, the year has kind of given us a lot of space to kind of really think about the play, and it's given me a lot more time to kind of work on it. So that's actually been quite nice in a way, and I feel like I feel like I've really had a lot of time to collaborate with my director and producer and really think about like what this play is. And so yeah, in many ways the pandemic has been, although it means our shows are not going to go on as they were going to go on, it's given us a lot more time to work on them. It's nice.
I hadn't thought about that. About how you might have more time to be a bit more close-knit. So I feel like sometimes in theatre everything can be so go.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, bye everyone, and you never see anyone ever again until you like run into them at a theatre play or something.
Yeah.
And you were like, but we were a family.
Yeah, all the time.
Why don't they speak to me anymore?
So true. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the play, maybe without spoilers, or a bit more about what it's about?
So Fake Melania is basically what the title says. It's about an actor who ends up getting the job as Melania Trump's body double, basically. So there's that whole conspiracy theory about Fake Melania. Does Melania Trump have like body doubles, and people like on Twitter doing hashtag Fake Melania? And so anyway, it's that's the kind of story, is what happens to this person when they don't know what they're auditioning for, and then suddenly it's like, oh, here's your job, like and it's like, okay. And so that's kind of the story element to it. And then it's so I find it so hard to talk about my work. So basically what it is it's I wanted to write a contemporary farce. Farce is kind of becoming more popular with like One Man, Two Governors and things like that. And I mean, the whole like Trump presidency was so outrageous and farcical and like unbelievable. So I wanted to be like, and I think comedy is sometimes a good way to think about politics. Sometimes it's so bad that you have to laugh, otherwise you just cry forever. So I was like, okay, can I write a contemporary farce like about the Fake Melania? So there's a lot of kind of trying to kind of draw on traditional farce forms, but also like, how can I make it more contemporary? You know, there's probably going to be a lot of people like hiding in cupboards and under beds and all the mistaken identity, all the rest of it. So yeah, it's really good fun. It's really challenging because I haven't written a farce before. So it's been a kind of a good challenge. I'm kind of at the stage where I'm now entering this kind of final, although is it ever final, but kind of final redraft before we go into doing our reading.
That sounds amazing. That sounds so good.
It's a lot of fun, hopefully. But this is why it's been amazing to work with like a movement director, because farce relies on really physical kind of sequences.
Yeah.
And I could go in, we were lucky that we managed to have a bit of R&D time in December, and I could say to the movement director, you know, this is what needs to happen. Can you and the actors create the movement that's gonna like support what needs to happen in the scene? And like, so it was just a really useful to have amazing other creatives to kind of work with.
That sounds really cool. I feel like, I wouldn't even know where to begin with a farce.
Yeah, it's, you know, I kind of, obviously I watched the National Theatre's One Man Two Governors when it was on over at NT Home, and I've read a lot of traditional farces, and I've got a whole awful bookshelf next to me of books about Donald Trump and Melania Trump and stuff. The whole thing, really, what I'm trying to write about is which is what I try and write about a lot, is I'm trying to write about performance. I'm really interested in like the performance of politics, and also kind of how performance can be challenging, dangerous for actors. That's kind of what's underneath the play, is like trying to think about performance through this mad farce. Who knows how that will turn out, but
I'm excited to see it. I feel like there's a lot of when I think about politics, I always think of choreography. I feel like there's a lot of choreography with politics and a lot of performance and showing, you know.
Exactly. Costume, like Boris Johnson's awful hair, like, you know, it's thinking about image, thinking about performance. So
when's the film sharing? Like, how can people see it?
Do you know, like, I don't know the full details yet. It might be a closed sharing for industry people, but we really want to like find somewhere to put the play on. As soon as we find a venue, I will let you know.
I think so. Yeah, great. And then I can link it in the show notes, and that would be amazing. I have now for you a quick fire round.
Ooh.
So what I'm gonna do, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions here. Just the first thing that comes to the top of your head. Ready?
Okay.
Okay. What are 3 things you notice in a play that puts you off it?
Oh, okay. So too much exposition. I guess if it's a story that feels very familiar and isn't really telling me anything new. I mean, I guess a play that's like, oh, it's really hard.
Just off the top of your head.
I was going to say a play that has a cast of all men, because that's not. But then there are some all men cast plays that are great. But so I guess I'm thinking about like something original, something diverse, and something that's not laying it all out there, but where the audience have to work as well. That wasn't very quick fire.
Perfect. Love it. What was the best money you ever spent as a writer?
This is such a good question. So my initial thing that comes to mind is I've just, back in January, maybe it was, I had a read through on Zoom of the first half of this play that I'm writing. And I just, you know, made sure I offered the actors some money for it. So I think that is the most recent really good use of my money, because hearing your play aloud by other people who aren't you and by professional actors is so helpful.
I like that. If you could do something differently when you were younger that would help you become a better writer now, what would you do?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think I don't know. it's like, it's difficult answering that question, because it's as if there's kind of a certain thing you can do that will, I think I'd just maybe have liked to have like tried out more different ways of writing, more different kind of more different things, because some of the things I did when I was younger that really helped me were I wrote a panto for primary school children, and I wrote a musical for young people, and I would have liked to have done a few more of those sort of more like not writing a traditional play, like I think that would have helped me a bit more if I'd had the chance to do a few more different kind of forms of theatre, I guess.
Cool. I didn't know you wrote a musical.
I did. It was so wonderful. It wasn't like in the West End, obviously. It was in a lovely theatre in Enfield. It was kind of like a youth community project, so it had a cast of all young people, and it was great. And I had like a choreographer who was in Michael Jackson's Thriller video.
What? So cool.
I know. So he was a cool guy. So yeah, it was a really nice thing to do. Writing for young people is always great. I'd like to have done more of that, I think.
Well, I mean, you still could if you want.
I still can.
Yeah. Why not? Okay, 2 more on the quick fire. Do you have a favourite play?
Yes, I do. My favourite play is Adler and Gibb by Tim Crouch.
Yeah, good shout. Because your research is, your PhD was into Tim Crouch, am I correct?
Yeah,
partly.
Part of it was.
Yeah.
So he's one of my favourite playwrights, and that is my favourite of his plays and my favourite play.
Yeah, I went to see his play I, Sinner, I think it was shortly before lockdown. I think that might have been the last play I went to see before the lockdown.
It was one of my last plays as well that I went to see before lockdown. Yeah, so strange.
Can't wait till we can see shows again. And the final quickfire one, actually not necessarily to do with writing, favourite hobby?
Oh, my favourite hobby. I tell you what, I've taken up so many hobbies during this pandemic. Cooking, like currently I'm doing it in like cross stitching and just like anything to like get out of not watching so much telly. Favorite hobby, gardening. I've been doing loads. I don't really have like a hobby, you know, like people are really into like, I don't know, whatever they're into. It's like my problem. I'm interested in too many different things. Too much. But I guess I like trying to learn new stuff. So even though this cross stitch makes me feel like a really old woman, where I'm like sat there with my blanket and my cross stitch, there's something really satisfying about being like, oh, it looks like a thing now. That's cool. Like I like learning languages as well. I learned Latin during first part of lockdown.
Wow, okay.
I guess I just like kind of making my brain work a bit and trying to do new stuff, but I don't have like one thing that I'm like obsessed with and do every day. Why I would be a great Blue Peter presenter.
Yes.
Just saying.
Like doing this here, doing that, doing everything. I love how casually you said just learning Latin during first part of lockdown.
It was actually really good. It was on like online classes, and I'd never had the chance to learn it before. It wasn't offered in my schools, so it was good fun.
Great. Oh, love that. Awesome. Okay, that's the quick fire round over. We can relax. So I'd love to ask, so these are some questions that I actually asked around if there was anything that like, what would you like to know? What would you like to hear? And people were really interested in, I guess, like some of the practical relational elements of being a writer. So people were asking about like, how do you make friends with other writers, for example?
or just writing relationships. Do you have any advice or thoughts on that?
That's really good. So yeah, making friends as a writer, I think, is really important because it can be a really lonely job. I'm very lucky that I've got a lovely group of writers. We call ourselves Playdate, and it's basically my friend Sarah Kosar, who's a brilliant playwright. She decided to set up a group of writers, not all of whom knew each other, just to and we'd meet every month. Like, we were really geeky at first, and we started we all read a play or went to see a play, and then we get together and discuss it. But now it's kind of more just moral support, but we do go away and have writing retreats away together, which is really great, where we can focus on stuff. But how to make friends as a writer is kind of tricky. One way is through social media. That's a really great place to find people now. I did a few courses when I was younger. I did the Royal Court Young Writers Program, which I think is now called Introduction to Playwriting, maybe. That's where I met Sarah. So I often think there are actually lots of opportunities for young writers at loads of different theatres have kind of programs that you can apply for, and if you can get onto one of them, that's a good place to find people and then just cling on to them. Also, if you do writing at degree level, or if you're going to do masters, that's another good place to find people. But yeah, it can be, I would say, get some writer friends. It kind of doesn't matter who they are, because if they're different to you, and if they write different things to you, and if you don't know them very well, that's really exciting. I would say all of my Playdate, we write really different things in different styles, and I think it's really helpful. So yeah, or just send a tweet out and be I want to start a writing group, who's up for it, and see what comes back. It's very motivating, and it's good to have a support network as well.
Yeah, I feel I have sort of a mini one, and it's actually, so it's with Dorcas and a few other friends that we're studying with at the time. And I think it's probably a more relaxed one than Playdate. It's just kind of checking in every now and then just being I've written something, who wants to read it, kind of thing, and sort of giving each other feedback. But yeah, it's definitely really valuable. And then something else, actually, this is what I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask whether, do you have anyone in your life that you would consider to be a mentor of sorts? Or if not, would you like one? Or
do you know what, I think a lot of my teachers have been kind of great mentors to me. So Mike Punter and Dan Rebellato at Royal Holloway were kind of really supportive. At the moment I have a mentor on the Old Vic 12 scheme, and that's Suzanne Bell from the Royal Exchange Theatre, and she is amazing. So that's really useful. But I wouldn't say I have one person who I always go to for advice or anything. So do I think having a mentor is important? Yeah, I think it can be really useful, and I've tried to kind of mentor a few people myself. So yeah, I think if you can get one, great. Definitely get one. It's good to, again, it's good to have someone to bounce ideas off.
Yeah, for sure. People are also really interested in hearing about how do you tackle balancing several projects at once?
Oh, this is a good question. I kind of have to plan. I have to sit down and make a plan and be right, when are my deadlines? And then kind of work backwards and be okay, so Monday I'm going to have to write scene 5 and 6 of this piece. Monday afternoon I'm going to have to do, I don't know, whatever research relating to another piece. So I kind of really have to plan or my brain can't cope. So I would say, definitely planning. And then just sitting down and doing it and trying to use the little, like, I like the Pomodoro method where you write for 25 minutes. And there's also a really great thing called the London Writers Salon, which is an online group where they meet 3 times a day online, and you can you turn up and there's like hundreds of other people there, and you just write for 15 minutes in silence. But at the beginning you set like an intention of what you want to work on, and at the end you type in the chat like how it went. And so anything like that which can give me a bit of structure and like force me to do stuff is useful. But yeah, I would say working out when your deadlines are and then working back from there, like how do you need to get there, and leaving enough time to rewrite stuff or for stuff that you don't manage to get done that day because your brain isn't functioning.
That's really useful. I feel like I overestimate how much I can do sometimes.
Don't we all?
So what was that, London Writers Salon? Is that cool? That sounds really useful. I didn't know about that. So
it's a really great space, and it's people from like all over the world working on different stuff. It's really interesting, actually.
Oh no, not finally. Penultimate question. I would love to know just a bit more generally about your personal writing routine and what that looks like to you. So I guess both in terms of like practically, do you have like any writing rituals, and then a bit more of the wider picture as to what does writing play look like for you?
Do you know what? It's different every time. Like every project is different, and some projects are really easy and some are harder. What does writing a play look like? So I have a different notebook for every play that I work on, where I use that notebook to make to jot ideas down, and to also any kind of meetings I have about the project, I write stuff down in that notebook. I think it's special. I think it's important to buy like special stationery to be like, okay, this is a new thing that I'm doing. I also have a different font for every play that I write.
Ooh, okay.
Like to suit the style of the play, whatever that might feel like to me. And I find like when I found the font, that's helpful. So, but what does a play look like? What does writing a play look like?
As in like, do you feel like maybe you come up with the plot first, or is it characters first, or like where the ideas come from and how you go about putting that on the page?
Yeah, it's usually a kind of not characters. Wouldn't say I come up with characters first necessarily. It's usually like I have an idea of something I want to write about. Like I have a kind of general sense of what I kind of, and then I'm like, okay, so now I kind of know what I want this to be about. Like who are the people who need to populate this world, and then I just sort of scroll through websites of people's names, like baby names, and be like, okay, let's pick a few names and let's kind of get going. So but I usually have a sense of some part of it, so I can kind of get started. Like it's quite rare for me to start something and not kind of know where I'm going, or not have a but it is different every time. Like I feel like I'm always learning again how to write a play. Sit down again, I'm like, oh, how do I do this? Like just sort of start typing. But sometimes it's not starting from the beginning chronologically, unless you know what that is. I think just start start from what you know. Like if you have a sense like, oh, there's going to be a scene where this happens, like start with that scene, because you're obviously excited by that scene. So don't feel you have to start from the beginning and then kind of like march through.
I think that's really comforting to hear, that you're continually reinventing your process. So I feel like sometimes I listen to writers and they're like, yep, so I do this, then this, then this, then I have the play, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I change all the time.
Yeah, no, that doesn't, it's not like I sit down at like 9 a.m. and I, you know, there's not like, and that's kind of frustrating. Like I wish I did have a process, but it just changes every time because of the material changes and the collaborators change, and so it's different every time. But yeah, I would say, so I remember on the Young Writers Program, Dennis Kelly came to speak to us, which was amazing because he's amazing, and I was a like fangirl and got my collected plays signed by him.
Yes, love that.
And he wrote something like, hope what I said was useful, if not just ignore it. And then he wrote, the only thing in writing is writing. And I've kind of always remembered that like basically you have to sit down and do it, because that's the only way you learn how to do it and learn what it is. And you can talk about it and think about it as much as you like, but until you sit down to do it. And it's the same with basically for playwriting. Like I don't think it's useful to write lots of plays and never see them performed. Like you have to see them performed. You have to go through that process to kind of understand what theatre is and learn more about like how you write and what you want to do. So it's basically you just have to do it and then you learn stuff. It's basically never easy, and I wish I could say that there's certain things that will definitely mean you write your play, but there's just I think if you're passionate about it, the story will come out, and if it doesn't come out, then it's not, you know, it's not the right time for that idea, or you need to kind of let it sit in your head for a few more years. So
that really reminds me of, I really like the quote, I think by Anne Lamott, and she says you can't edit a blank page. I think it's how he says it, but that's always really motivating for me when I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. Then I just think, well, something has to be on the page for it to become good. So
yeah, I say to my students, like, don't get it right, get it written. I'm sure that's a quote from someone else, but it's all, you just have to get it out there.
So I know that I've asked you a lot about playwriting, naturally, but I know that you also wrote a radio play that won Lambeth First, and I actually had a really nice listen to it a little while ago, which was my second listen to it, because I actually listened to it a long time ago. What was it like writing for radio? Was that the first time you'd written a radio drama? How does it differ from playwriting?
It actually wasn't like initially a radio piece. So it was for this company based in Brixton called 16 Feet, and they did this Lambeth playwriting competition, and I sent this short play in, and it was one of the pieces that got picked for this night of short plays. I've done a lot of short plays nights, and they're a great way to kind of learn about writing, and I would encourage people to write short plays. It's like you kind of need to know how to swim like the tiny bit of the swimming pool before swimming like across the channel. I think short plays are really useful in learning your craft. But yeah, so, and then I can't even remember how it happened, but they turned it into an audio piece, and so I did have to make a few changes for it to become an audio piece. But actually I realized that what I had written was pretty much an audio piece anyway, because it was just two people stood telling their story out to the audience. So it kind of fitted quite nicely, and so that was the first time I'd ever written anything for audio. I haven't written anything since. Like, I want to write a radio play and I have an idea for one, but and I've kind of learn a bit about radio writing. So that's kind of one of the next things that I want to do. But that was really, it was really exciting. I loved hearing it be like being recorded by the actors, and then it was a really nice experience. So
maybe during lockdown, or I guess we're coming out of it, but maybe
during the next
time to do some audio,
the next lockdown.
Number 4. But how has that been for your writing, like in general? Like obviously we've kind of spoken about what you've been working on.
So it's been a mix. Like for the first part of last year, I couldn't do anything except cook and garden. It was like those were the ways that I could be creative. Like I couldn't focus on writing really at all. But then as I've kind of got used to this general situation, it's become a bit easier to get back to writing and stuff. But I guess more widely, it just has made me think a lot about the industry and my career and like what I'm doing with my life. I think a lot of people in the theatre industry have thought, you know, or many probably have changed careers or thought about like, is the industry about to completely collapse? Like, you know, it's been a hard time for theatre makers. So I've done a lot of thinking about why do I write theatre and what do I want to do next? So it's been a kind of useful space for a reflection. I have, obviously I've been lucky. I've had stuff to be working on throughout this time. It's been okay. Up and down.
Yeah, it's like we're here, we're moving. That's actually a perfect segue into my final question, which is, do you have any like specific goals or things that you'd like to work on in the future? And actually, I'm really fascinated by you said you've been thinking about why you write. Maybe you could share a bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to do everything again, Nikki. I want to be like the Blue Peter presenter of creativity. So I want to write a radio play, I want to write a sitcom, I want to write a short film, but I kind of want to expand away from theatre actually and try out different forms of writing. I also have so many ideas that I'd like to kind of get off the ground. So but yeah, I am just thinking a lot about like, you know, why do I write? Maybe it's because I taught a course this year called Why Write, which has basically been looking at writers talking about why they write. So I've been like, maybe I should give this some thought. And it's trying to think about like, I guess I've been thinking about, well, in a country where I don't feel the arts is valued as much as it should be, like what am I contributing? And also when I write stuff, often I'm like just writing stuff for, I don't know, a theatre audience, you know, or other theatre people, and I'm like, well, how can I'd like my, I don't know, Nikki, I'd like thinking about like, how can I guess the pandemic has just been, you know, seeing people do amazing things and all the key workers, and I've just thought, well, like, how can I make a difference? And I know that theatre does make a difference and is really, really important. But I guess it's just made me think again, like, is there a way I can really use my playwriting in kind of ways that kind of make the world a better place? And who knows, rather than just writing another short play and putting it on, you know. It's
and it's kind of like, are you reaching the people you want to reach as well, right?
Exactly. And I think I'm very passionate about wanting access to theatre to be broadened and to be for everyone. How can I make that happen through writing a play? don't know if I can really. Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about thinking about using my writing skills in different ways and other ways, and yeah, we'll see where it takes me. Who knows? I've been frantically Googling, like, how do I become a paramedic? I don't think I'm going to go down that route quite yet. Stick around for a bit.
Awesome. Oh, well, thank you so much for this, Poppy. This has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see your future sitcoms and all the audio plays and all these things. Maybe another musical.
Maybe. Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you for asking me. It's been really great to chat.